Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bella Gamer, and there's a lot going on with Paizo. We recently just went over a stream yesterday, so if you want to check that out, our reactions live, you can check that out on the live channel. I'm also going to be releasing some shorts that I was able to capture as well, so keep an eye out for that. But a lot is coming out for the War of Immortals stuffs, and we're actually going to start seeing some material a bit earlier than we were expecting. But let's go ahead and talk about the dead horse in the room, the dead white elephant, whatever. And that's going to be the death of Gorum. That's right. The god announced during this stream was Gorum. And that's pretty insane. Not one of my top 5 choices, even, but it makes sense, right? You're trying to describe a threat to, everything pretty much. What do? You kill the god of fighting themselves. And in addition, Gorum is just a really good god to kill because there's just so many cool things you can do, predominantly using shards of Gorum's armor to make new weapons. And that's actually something that they mentioned, but they also mentioned this unique smoke, this black smoke coming out of Gorum's chest here. There's a better image of it, but you get the gist. There's something to that the developers mentioned specifically. And in the APs, there's actually a ton of new adventure paths that are going to be coming out around everything happening with the God's Reign and all that kind of stuff. And the collecting of these shards of Gorum seems to be one of the aspects to at least the first adventure path that they're coming out with, which is going to be Curtain Call. So Curtain Call is actually going to be the first adventure path kind of release, but only the first book. It's actually not going to be the entire thing when it comes to everything related to the War of the Immortals. The first book, Stage Fright, that you can see on the far left here, is going to be the first book. It's going to be released in July, but there will be also a standalone adventure that'll be coming up very shortly after that, which is going to be really cool. But this is an 11th to 20th level adventure, and we can see here Skinsaw and Norgerber right here. So Norgerber is going to be probably one of the big gods kind of in the events of what's going on. It's very interesting, and I'm very curious if they're going to go with like a god killed another god or some outside force. And speaking on outside forces, they're going to be releasing some new crazy monsters, including a interesting new spawn of Rovagug that you can see here behind me. You see all these dwarves fighting him, and this is actually a orc god that was corrupted. The god's name was Varix the Despoiler, now Varix that's been turned into a new spawn of Rovagug. As not only Gorum is going to die, but some other gods are going to die as well. Though Gorum is the only core god that is going to be going missing. Well, not missing. Is going to be dying in the event. But the orcs are kind of going to get a shakeup, as well as another adventure path that's coming out is specifically dealing with Belkazin and everything revolving around the orcs, and that's called Triumph of the Tusks, which I'm super excited about. The orcs are kind of getting this big shakeup. They've been getting worked on a lot in recent years, and so I think this is very necessary for orc culture to be more or less just warmongers and a much more diverse culture. Obviously, we got some of that with the Mwangi Expanse book stuff, but this is going to be a lot more interesting. And this is another AP that's going to be coming out sometime later in the year. I don't remember if it's actually mentioned. I didn't find it in my notes, but it's going to be released a bit later. This is going to be a earlier level adventure path rather than Curtain Call, which is it's going to be a 3 to 11 level campaign, which is very interesting. And in addition, they also announced that in early August, like August 1st, they're releasing another hardcover standalone adventure, and that's going to be Pray for Death. So this is a standalone adventure for 14th level characters, and it's going to be specifically around, you can kind of see here, the Red Mantis Assassins, which is really, really cool. I mean, they are, after all, a divine assassin corps. So, of course, we're going to be getting some stuff with them. And I'm so excited to see more hardcover adventure pass. This is going to be one of the first new ones for second edition. They did, of course, like Kingmaker and the Kobold one, but those weren't new. Those were like in first edition. This is the first new standalone adventure that's getting a hardcover release, at least at launch. I think Fist of the Ruby Phoenix is also going to get one. And they did announce that they're actually going to be releasing some more. And they did hint a little bit that they're going to be releasing some Mythic Adventure stuff as well. So I'll show you a clip from the stream here.
That will be the adventure pass pretty much. Going forward, one thing that I do want to mention also is these first two adventure paths, Curtain Call and Triumph of the Tusk, are really focusing on the narrative elements of War of Immortals, the death of the god, and all of the stuff going on. They're not specifically built to be for mythic characters. We are going to get around to doing mythic adventures at some point. I'm excited to do that sort of thing.
So you can see we got a lot and stuff for mythic stuff coming in the future, which is super exciting. I know a lot of people have been very interested in it. And I think this is a good opportunity to really talk about what Mythic is. Mythic isn't post 20. It's a big misconception, which, to be fair, is when I had myself as well. Mythic is like an additional leveling system on top of normal character leveling, where your character is just far stronger than a character of their level essentially should. Mythic characters can essentially be considered like living legend characters who get very strong powers a lot earlier than you normally would, that make your characters stronger, but not necessarily like post 20 stronger, at least not right away. And actually, speaking about all of this, let's talk about the book that they're probably going to actually release some of the Mythic stuff in, which is the War of Immortal book itself. And they released some cover art, which is really, really cool. So as you can see behind me, we have the new sketch cover, and I love the War of Immortals book being in red rather than their standard special edition blue. I think that's super fitting. And you can see there is art, because that art is of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. This is War, which makes a ton of sense, and that is Zuriel or Azuriel or something like that. Not super familiar with the lore myself, honestly, or at least not that aspect of it. But it is a very cool book. We got a little bit more information on some of the new iconics coming up, like Nahoa, which during the stream, there was something really interesting. Michael Sayer kind of slipped a little bit talking, or not Michael Sayer, I think it was Luis. Luis was talking about Nahoa, and there was kind of a slip about the Mythic exemplar. So we might be getting Mythic versions of classes. So the Mythic system might, rather than being an added layer thing, there might be a Mythic progression for each class. So Mythic exemplar with Nahoa is very, very interesting. We didn't get a lot about Samo, but I do love the now colored art from Samo for the iconic Animist. And during the War of Immortals book, they reveal that there's going to be a lot of very cool information coming out for it. As you can actually go and check out the product page now for the War of Immortals book. I'm going to whitewash my face here because there's a lot here as I'm looking at it. So, as we mentioned, they're releasing the Animist and the Exemplar, which is really, really cool. There's also new feats and lineages for the Nephilim ancestor, or versatile heritage, which is something that I think is really cool and very needed, since Nephilim kind of absorbed a lot of other types of extraplanar kind of entities. So it needs to be a little bit more beefy than some of the other versatile heritages, which makes a lot of sense. There's also 5 new class archetypes, and that's something that's really big. New class archetypes. So they're really pushing the evolving of classes by selecting class archetypes at level 1, which is really cool. And the ones they mention here is the Avenger Rogue and a big fan favorite, the Blood Rager Barbarian archetype, which is super duper cool. As I kind of alluded to before, there is going to be rules for Mythic play, but we just don't know what it is yet. We also have new Mythic destinies, including the Fearsome Apocalypse Rider and the Undying Eternal Legend. So I'm curious if we're going to actually be looking at something very similar to how Wrath of the Righteous did the Mythic system, which is very exciting if that's the case. I'm very, very curious, or it might be based on classes. I'm not sure. We also have new weapons, items, and spells for Mythic characters coming out, and we have 8 terrifying new Mythic monsters and rules for creating Mythic threats of your own. So the War of the Immortals book is going to be massive. It's something I'm very, very much looking forward to, and I guarantee a lot of you are going to enjoy as well. But that was not it. Not only are we getting new adventure pass with really cool things surrounding what happens when a god dies before and after, new hardcovers, new stuff like that, but we're also getting some new novel stuff coming out. The God's Reign novel, which, look at this cover art. This is really, really cool. This looks like that same Varric that was the despoiler, or the ex despoiler, the new spawn of Rovagug. I really love this. If you enjoy reading actual like books set in the setting of Pathfinder, well, now with second edition, we're starting off with God's Reign, which is really cool. There's also going to be some pre-materials coming out for it, some digital pre-materials. There's the God's Reign Prophecy, and one other one. I can't remember what it was at this time. Not a super big deal unless you're super into the lore. But this is something I really love to see, and I'd really love to see more Pathfinder stuff in bookstores. And this is a really good way for them to do so without needing to necessarily encroach on D&D's shelf space, more or less. But not only did we talk about new books, new APs, War of Immortals, but we're getting more character options coming out with the new Lost Omens book, Divine Mysteries. Now, Divine Mysteries is coming out in November sometime, but this is not a book you're going to want to miss, which is very interesting because it's not even the first Divine book to come out in the Lost Omens line. There was another one. Can't remember what it was at this time, but it was like the Religions book, which did offer a lot of character options there, and this book is no different. It's offering so much. First and foremost, we're getting more class archetypes and archetypes in the form of the Battle Harbinger, which is the new cleric specific class archetype, where you give up some more of your casting abilities in exchange for more martial prowess, which is something that a lot of people have been asking for. And while I do think War Priest definitely added to it, I think this is going to go a step further in that direction. And you can probably even look at this more similarly to a new doctrine than I would even say as a class archetype. Next up, then, we got the Rivathun Emissary, which is a new archetype that is about communicating with the spirits and using divine spells without the need of communicating with a god, which is really cool. I also really love the new familiar art that they included here with this one. And last but not least, we have the Palatine Detective, where, if you're familiar with the Palatine Eye, it's a organization that's kind of about looking into divine artifacts and stuff found in Ustalav. This one is very interesting, and this is for the Investigator, which, mwah, I love the sight of getting a new Investigator class archetype. And this one's very interesting because it allows you to get divine spell casting in very unique ways. I'm thinking something probably similar more to Thaumaturge, but of course more through like divine items and everything. I love Investigators, so giving me this kind of option I think is really, really cool. If you go to the product page, you also learn that they're introducing a new witch patron, a bunch of new divine spells, abilities, all that kind of stuff. And in addition to that, where there is another archetype mentioned that doesn't have any art associated with it, which is the Mortal Herald, which is something very interesting and something I think represents mortals in the ongoing conflict. In addition, we're getting access to some new gods. We have Aleph, the benevolent god of darkness, so those who find reassurance and such in darkness. We have Nin here, which is very, very interesting. It's a new vampire god that's more on the scholastic or studious side, and they even give the ability to allow their, vampire followers to eventually be able to step out into the sun. And to go with the loss of some of the orc gods, or one of the orc gods anyway, we have joining the orc pantheon Maja Firehair, who they didn't really go too much into, but she looks really, really cool. I love the smoke and fiery aesthetic. She looks like another war-esque kind of god. Not the one that's going to replace Gorum, but very, very interesting indeed. And you can see over here something a little interesting. A new living weapon god, Zar Tovan, which is a god of probably sentient weapons, but weapons and warfare as well. So we are getting all kinds of new character options for clerics. We got new domains, some reworking of the remaster stuff for some of the old domain stuff for the gods originally, which I think is really cool. And the Divine Mysteries book is probably one of my most looked forward to books this year, not including War of the Immortals. And you would think that with everything that I've mentioned here, that would be the end, but no, because in less than 2 weeks, we're getting 2 new classes for playtesting. As it was very loosely mentioned, and I should make special mention that this is for seasoned warriors, and this part above me is in a higher or a bigger typeface than the rest of the sentence. Seasoned warriors. It's a commander and guardian. They mentioned the commander is an intelligent fighter strategist, and the guardian is a big, beefy, heavily armored character. I'm very, very interested. Now, this begins April 29th. So be sure to check out the channel. And actually, now's a good opportunity. If you have not done so already, go ahead and click subscribe, and as well like the video so other people get a chance to see this, as I'll be covering all stuff Paizo, Lancer, whatever tabletop related that is coming out soon. And I'm going to be doing some in-depth looks into the commander and the guardian and giving my looks. The commander, I think, is very cool and very, very interesting. The guardian, I'm very curious how they're not going to step on the toes of like the champion or like the bastion archetype, but Paizo has never let me down before, so I absolutely expect this playtest to be really good. And in addition, Seasoned Warriors, I think either one, that's the name of the book that they're going to release in, which is going to be kind of cool. But what I'm most excited about is this kind of alludes to the idea of something that I've been waiting for them to do for a while, which is we're going to be getting a Marshall's book, where we had the magic book and we had the occult book and the primal book. Soon we're going to be getting the divine book with War of the Immortals. So I think it's about time Marshall's got their own book with a couple new classes, a bunch of new options for more martially attuned characters, and hopefully a massive expansion of the repertoire of weapons. Even though I know there's a ton, I feel like now that they're gonna lack some of their design principles on the weapons to allow us to have some much cooler and more interesting weapons and some archetypes to use those weapons specifically. So this playtest is going to probably be a pretty big indication of what's coming forward, and I am so stoked. And that was the stream. You can see behind me here the full release schedule, so you can go ahead, feel free to pause. But we have in July, Pray for Death and Curtain Call. Even though Pray for Death technically releases August 1st, some people will get access to it a little bit earlier. And Curtain Call, followed by in September, we're going to be getting the God's Reign Prophecies, an ebook short stories, as well as God's Reign, which is coming out in November. In October, we're getting the War of Immortals book. We're getting the start of the Triumph of the Tusk, and that's when the book is being released, before the God's Reign. And finally, at the end of the year, capping everything off, we are getting before the God's Reign, sorry, is another ebook, and then the God's Reign is the novel that is coming out in November. My bad. Some of this information got cut off on their stream even. And we also are getting Divine Mysteries, A New Lost Omens source book, which is something that I'm very, very hyped for. But yeah, that's everything Paizo's planning on releasing for the remainder of the year. I'm gonna be so actually no, actually that's not that's not everything. No, not even close. This is all just the War of the Immortals. Let's not forget Qian Sha. Very soon, I should be receiving a copy of my book to give you guys the Qian Sha World Guide, as well as the character guide that comes out also in August. And in addition, we're getting the playtest material that's going to be for Starfinder 2nd edition, which is going to be coming out in July or during Gen Con, which is going to be something I'm also going to be taking a look at. And next month, we're going to be looking at Howl of the Wild with the new ancestries and new nature and beast type archetypes and rule sets. So don't relax. We got a lot of really cool things coming the rest of this year, and I'm so excited to share it with you. And as I said before, if you haven't done so already, subscribe, go down into the description, join our Discord. We got people joining all the time. We got people looking for games there, and we talk all things tabletop, not just Pathfinder. So if you want to get information on whenever we go live or whenever a new video comes out, I recommend signing up there. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck and all this lore to me, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.